Hello, welcome back to the channel. So just over a week to go now till race day. Time to go through my race day plan, my race day goals. Decisions have been made in terms of how I'm going to set off, what kind of paces and race time I'm going to be looking for. But yeah, looks like I've made it through the block, thankfully. So yeah, one more training run tomorrow and then to a 1 week taper. Let's dive in, let's go through my race day plans, my race day goals and see what I'm going to get up to. So yeah, after the ups and downs of the last few weeks, looks like I've finally made it all the way through to the end of the block. Like I said, we've got one training run tomorrow, but touch wood, there was no issues with that. It's just an easy paced 10 mile with the training group down at the Chester Marathon training run. So yeah, hopefully I made it through the block. So yeah, to start with, I'm going to quickly go back to 2022. I'm going to have a quick reflection on terms of how that race went, which is the same race, the Chester Marathon 2022. I'm running the same race in a week's time. Chester Marathon again as my second ever marathon. So yeah, I'm going to reflect back on 2022, what I did, what went good, what went bad, and hopefully try and learn from that. And then I'm going to quickly go into my goals in terms of how they've changed from the start of the block to now, and what I'm actually going to be aiming for on race day itself. So yeah, going back to 2022 quickly, pre-training block for Chester Marathon 2022, I wanted to do probably around the 3:30 mark, I think was the goal. As the block went on, I dropped that back down to 3:40, sub 3:40 was the pre-race goal. So the pre-race goal was probably around sub 3:40, but again, it was the unknown for me. I'd never run a marathon. The only time I'd ever run above a 10k previously was the year before when I ran the metric marathon on the same day. That race the year before was the first ever time I'd gone past 10k. So this was a complete unknown. Obviously, I trained a little bit for this in terms of a solid block. So the first 5k block was 24:44. These are on screen for average pace. But again, looking back at the stats now, my heart rate for that, average heart rate for that was 168. So I probably should have, again, known at the time to slow down at this point. That's kind of above threshold effort. Might have been the adrenaline, etc. But again, at the time, I only had the pace, I think, visible on screen. So I was looking at trying to hit certain paces or looking at the pace whilst running to try and hit a certain pace. Anywhere around that 5 minute per k, 8 minute per mile would have been perfect. And that's kind of what I was hitting. Second 5k, I did a 25:09. Again, these are on screen for average pace. And then the average heart rate for that k was 170. So again, the signs were on the wall there. I probably should have slowed down, and that was for what was later to come. Third 5k, 25:34. These are on screen again for average, so slowing down slightly. But again, heart rate remained 170 average. The fourth 5k, up to kind of 20k now, I did 25:16. So again, picked up a little bit there in terms of fairly consistent around the 5 minute per k, 8 minute per mile, consistently over that 20k. And again, heart rate had now got up to 172. So that's kind of not far off 5k effort pace at the time, and even now to some extent. So yeah, it was way too high. But again, I didn't have heart rate displayed. I just basically was running what I felt was on field, but maybe I was getting carried away with the race day experience. Into the fifth known now, so we're going up to 25k, 20 to 25. I ran a 25:41. So again, at this point, I was still feeling okay, slightly slower, average pace on the screen, but yeah, pretty consistent in terms of not too different to the previous ones. And again, heart rate this time, because it was slightly slower, dropped down to 170. So again, still way too high, and I've basically been running for now 2 hours, just over 2 hours now at a 170-ish average heart rate, which again, explain why what happened next happened. And then into that sixth 5k, this is kind of when the wheels fell off, around the 26, 27k mark. But yeah, I ran a 27:56 for the sixth 5k up to the 30k mark. Average pace on screen, and my heart rate at this point, again, because I slowed right down and dropped down to 164. And that's kind of when I bonked, the official marathon bonk kicked in, the first time I'd experienced it. My CV, I still felt okay, even though I'd had a high heart rate. My legs suddenly felt really heavy and just wouldn't propel myself forward very much. And although I was putting effort in to move quicker, I just couldn't go any quicker. And then the rest of the race basically just slowed down slightly. So then the seventh 5k up to 35k, I ran a 28:46. So again, the wheels had officially fallen off. Average pace on screen for that 5k block. And my heart rate dropped down to 161, which is probably closer to where it should have been for the entirety of the race. And this maybe wouldn't have happened if I'd been slower in the first half. And then the 8th 5k up to 40k, I ran a 31:58. Average pace, really, really slow. And the average heart rate for that block had dropped right down to 152. Amazingly, even though that pace was that pace, I didn't do any walking whatsoever. So this first marathon, one of my other goals was to not walk at any point, even if it was fatigued or blown up or whatever. I was trying not to walk on any of the hills. Obviously, this last, those that know the race, these last 5-10k is where the undulations kick in from Farndon back up to Chester. It's kind of rolling hills, not massive ones, but they're consistently there every couple of kilometres, and they're significant enough to sap you of anything you've got left when you've got nothing left, not much left at all anyway. And then the last 2.2k to the finish line, I did 13 minutes, so again average pace, not particularly quick on screen, and average heart rate was 158. So yeah, that's a fairly quick recap of 2022. Ended up with a 348 low, so not quite where I wanted to be in terms of my A goal was sub 340, B goal was sub 345. But I managed to hit my C goal of sub 350. But yeah, what lessons learned? Obviously, this year I've not set a massively consistent concrete goal for that reason alone, that if you've got a goal in mind and then either your fitness isn't matching up to that, or on the day something doesn't quite go right. If you set off too quick in the first half of any kind of race, you'll pay the price in the second half. The only difference is for the longer races, you're basically paying the price for far longer time, and it can have far bigger of an impact. And thinking back, as I hit the half marathon point, I wasn't feeling fresh or energetic. I was working way prior to that point. So lessons learned is to not go off too quick. That's why I've not set a concrete goal. I wanted to get to this point in the block and know where I am in terms of physical fitness. What am I feeling like? What do I think I can achieve? So yeah, going off my half marathon PB of 132, going off a couple of different algorithms or kind of gauges, you can probably guesstimate the maximum predicted time, you could argue, is around the 3:15 mark. So you could do double your half marathon plus 15 or 20 minutes. So double my half marathon is 3 hours 4 minutes, and then you add on 10, 15, 20 minutes, then it's around the 3:15, 3:20-ish mark. And that's kind of the ceiling I kind of set myself pre-training block. So 3:20 was what I thought would be my maximum performance on a marathon day. This was obviously 16 weeks ago. 3:20 was probably the best I thought I could possibly do. That's what I was kind of training towards. That's what I used as my marathon training pace, around the 3:20, just to see if during the training that felt comfortable or achievable. I would have maintained that kind of A goal as 3:20 as my kind of peak performance. But again, those that have followed along, anyone that's missed anything out, feel free to go back through the training block. I'll tag it there, so any of the training episodes or recaps. It's not gone completely to plan. I think I've had probably 12 or 13 weeks of solid training, 2 or 3 weeks of disruption, massive disruption, not what I wanted to be at all, which has affected my overall fitness, affected my overall confidence in terms of ability to run the times I wanted to run. And then obviously looking back at my first marathon of 2022, lessons that need to be learned from that. I don't want to do the same thing again and set off too optimistically and pay the price over the second half. So where do I think I am, and what am I going to be doing about it? So right now, I don't think I'm at 3:20 marathon fitness. I think the weeks I've had affected the fitness, the reduction in running has dropped my base fitness down a little bit. It's still pretty good. Is this block better than the 2022 block? Probably. Again, 2 or 3 weeks ago I said 100% this is miles better, but again, a couple of weeks of massive disruption. I was fairly consistent in 2022. I hit fairly consistent mileage. I think I've done more mileage this block in spite of those reduction in weeks. I've hit a few, I've had a bit more intensity. I think I'm running faster now than I was then. But again, I've had a massive reduction in long runs. Pretty much not every long run, but most long runs I try to do for them week 12 onwards. Something cropped up, either time limitations or an injury flared up or something else. A lot of the long runs were the ones that I lost. Easy running, I got most of that in. Most of the tempo workouts and short speed workouts I managed to get done. It's mainly the long runs. So again, long runs aren't my speciality, my forte, my strongest point, and I've not done enough of them, I don't think, in this block. So I think if I had to guess, I think I'm going to be around the 3:30-ish mark, probably, but again, it's unknown until the day. So race day plan, let's get into that now. So what am I going to do? I'm going to set off around that kind of pace, but again, I'm pretty much not going to set a goal whatsoever. I'm not going to hang on to the back of the 3:30 pace group if that feels too quick at the start. I'm not going to slow down with them if I feel I can go a bit quicker. Basically, there's going to be a loose plan. 3:30 is in my head as a loose kind of goal, but if I head to 3:33 or 3:35 or 3:28, again, it doesn't really matter. And then again, difference on the day now, all I'm going to have displayed on my watch is my current heart rate and cadence. I find them two things go hand in hand in terms of if I slow my cadence down too much when I'm fatiguing and I'm plodding, that will have an effect on my energy levels towards the end. So I want to keep a fairly high cadence, but I also want to have my heart rate displayed because again on the day, as proved with the 2022 reflection, what you think is okay and achievable and manageable and not too hard of an effort ends up being sub-threshold effort, and you're just not aware of it because you're too excited or too pumped with adrenaline for the race. So yeah, race day plan is to set off calmly, casually, or basically use the first 10k as a warm-up basically. The second 10k as a kind of pace setter in terms of not going off too quick, trying to maintain that kind of comfortable feeling. And then obviously in the second half of the race, so 21k onwards, start then to gauge effort levels a bit more closely, and if I've got room to spare, which is unlikely considering the minimal long runs I've done, I can maybe pick it up a little bit, but definitely up to 30k I want to still feel fairly comfortable. Like I said, I'm going to have displayed on my watch's heart rate and cadence. I want to keep my cadence close to 170, just so I'm doing nice short quick steps, minimise injury risk, minimise impact on the legs, and I'm quite a tall runner, so I do plod naturally. I don't have a massively high cadence naturally, so I need to try and keep it up for efficiency. And again, heart rate, I'm going to try and keep it definitely below 160, probably closer to 155 or lower. The first half of the race, that should be fairly comfortable, hopefully, because my easy pace is around the 5 minute per k, 8 minute per mile, slightly slower at the minute again because I've lost a little bit of fitness, but I can generally do that lower than 140 beats per minute. So staying below 150, 155 around that pace should be fairly not easy but comfortable enough, other than a few hills which might spike it at the start. So that's basically the loose race day goal. I'm not really fussed about pace. I'm not really fussed about anything else. Basically, I'm not going to look at pace groups and try and hang on to them if I don't need to. I generally end up running by myself in most of the races I do anyway. Unless I'm pacing, obviously, in the group stage with me, I always find myself in no man's land. I never end up sticking with groups. I don't particularly like running with larger groups. I don't mind running by myself. I do that all my training like that. So not many, from what I can tell, not many marathon runners set off accurately in terms of an appropriate pace. Most set off too quick and pay the price for the second half. Myself included, I did that in 2022. It was way too quick. Look at the first half of the marathon and the second half of the marathon. It was a massive positive split. So if I can negative split, brilliant. If I can just consistently split it, even that's just as good. So that's the kind of loose goal. And just one final little thing I want to look at before I wrap it up. I always generally look back at the previous year's races when I'm entering a race. It's just a little quirk I have. I always look at the previous year's results and then have a scan of where I think I might have finished in terms of my, like I said, goals or expectations for myself, just to see where I would have fitted in terms of other people's races. And then again, generally you can, on the results pages, you can see the splits. And then as I was looking through last year's marathon results, I was looking, at the time, I think I was looking at around anywhere between that 320 and 330 finishing time, just as a kind of gauge to see who finished in that kind of window, what paces they ran in terms of, again, their splits, again, to learn off other runners. It's just a little thing I wanted to go through, just a quick thing that stood out to me was two runners specifically in that window of that 10 minutes, and then how they approach their races differently, and then which kind of runner of the two I wish to be. So yeah, I was calling runner number one anonymous. Obviously, I'm not going to give out people's details, but yeah, runner number one, runner number two, I'm going to refer to them as. And again, as I'm talking through this, obviously don't put in the comments because the answer will be at the end, but yeah, just think out loud as you're watching. So yeah, these are in 10k splits. I'm going to give you each of the runners 10k split, and then after each 10k, just again think out loud the difference between runner number one's finish time and the difference between runner number two's finish time. So is he going to finish 10 minutes ahead, 20 minutes ahead, 4 minutes ahead, 50 minutes ahead? Basically just guess it after each 10k. It stood out to me how differently they approach these two races, and then the actual outcome difference as well. So yeah, runner number one after 10k ran 44 minutes just over, and runner number two ran just over 48 minutes. So a 4-minute swing after 10k. So now I have a guess out loud in terms of while you're watching, just to guess the difference, the finishing time difference. So after a quarter of the race, just under, runner number one is 4 minutes ahead. So after second 10k, runner number one ran it in 45 minutes flat. Runner number two ran it in 48:30. So another, what's that, 3.5 minutes. So we're now 7.5, nearly 8 minutes behind as runner number 2. Third 10k, runner number 1 ran it in 49.11, and runner number 2 ran it in 48, just over. So he's gained nearly a minute back there. So we're now down to 6.5 minutes. And again, runner number 2's remaining fairly consistent, 48, 48.5, 48. Runner number 1's gone from 44 to 45 to 49. So again, have a guess now at the differences in time. So we're still 6.5 minutes ahead as runner number 1. The fourth 10k split up to the 40k mark. Runner number 1 ran a 55.30 and runner number 2 ran a 49-minute flat. So he's gained the 6 minutes back pretty much. That almost, I think there's about 45 seconds difference now. So runner 1 is still 45 seconds ahead after 40k. But again, he's slowing right down, and runner 2 is staying fairly consistent. But have a guess now about who finishes first, who finishes second, and the difference. Again, I won't know because I can't hear you, but just out for your own curiosity, have a guess if you're right or wrong. And then the final 2k window, obviously up to 42k. Runner number 1 ran just over 10 minutes for the final 2k, and runner number 2 ran 9.5 minutes for the final 2k. So I have a final guess now at the exact difference in time between runner 1 and runner 2. Who finished first, who finished second, just to get to across the finish line. And then I'll reveal the answer now. And the answer is runner number 1 won by a total of 1 second. So yeah, after being 4 minutes ahead after 10k and up to 7.5 minutes ahead, nearly 8 minutes ahead after 20k, by the end of the race, he finished 1 second, or he or she, again, I don't actually know, I made it anonymous, I copied the scores down, the times down. They finished a second ahead of runner number 2. Again, there's no background in terms of ages, abilities, like I say, male, female, but what stands out to me is the times don't lie. Runner number 1 is probably me from 2 years ago, setting off at what you optimistically thought you could possibly do, and by the end of the race, it clearly shows that was too quick. And runner number 2 has set off at an appropriate pace and basically been able to maintain that pace for the whole duration. Which one would I rather be? Again, I don't know either of the two runners, but I'm assuming runner number 2 enjoyed their race far more, got far more satisfaction from the way they managed to deliver that race. Runner number 1, again from my experience back in 2022, probably didn't enjoy any part of the second half of that race in terms of the effort they would be putting in and the actual speed they've been slowing down to, in terms of they just probably bonked badly. So yeah, I want to be runner number 2. I want to run consistently. I want to run at a pace, set off at a pace that's appropriate. I've got to be aware of the block and what's gone well and what's gone bad, and manage that properly. So yeah, that's the plan for the day. If on the day, as I said, that 3:30 pace feels too quick and my heart rate spikes, I will slow down. I'm happy to run anything. Again, my current PB for the marathon is 3:48. My one and only marathon 2 years ago was 3:48 at Chester. So anything quicker than that is a positive, I suppose. I'll be slightly disappointed if it's only a couple of minutes, but again, it is what it is. I can't magically get quicker and fitter if I'm not there. What will be on the day, and that's the way I'm going to approach it. I'm going to try and enjoy the race, run it consistently, but I'll be aware of the signs this time in terms of anything going too quick. I need to be aware of that earlier in the race and not run into a brick wall towards the end when I could have maybe dealt with it earlier in the race. So yeah, that's the aims and the goals. Drop in the comments if you run in Chester. I know quite a few people have been following along. I run in the Chester Marathon. Drop in the comments what you're going to be aiming for on the day, how you're going to approach the race. As I'm down for the training run tomorrow, which is Sunday, this will drop on the same day. So if you see me in the morning, come over and say hello. If you see me on the race day itself, pre-race, during the race, whatever, feel free to talk to me. I'm happy to talk and socialise with people during the race. Hopefully I'll be going at a pace where I'm able to converse. If not, again, that should probably be evident to me, and I should hopefully slow down. But yeah, all the best for your races and running. Drop in the comments, like I said, what you're going for. If it's not Chester, if you've run Berlin recently, let me know how you got on. If you've got any other marathons coming up in the near future, again, drop in the comments your aims and expectations for those. But yeah, all the best for your running, all the best for your race day in terms of the marathons, Chester specifically. I hopefully see you all on the day, and happy running, and I'll see you all on the next one.